With my chair, Mrs. Katsiki, and me, we will present you the oral session. We have 6 papers to be presented. Unfortunately, there is one missing, but all 6 are very interesting, as we'll see. We have 10 minutes for presentation and 2 to 4 minutes for discussion. So let's start with the first paper presented by Mr. Stefanidis. Mr. Stefanidis is here, yes. And so the title is Optimizing Vitamin D Status in Children with Preschool wheeze or Asthma, a pilot study, the OptiVid study, so by Mr. Stefanidis, Griffiths, Bush, and Martineau from Queen Mary of University of London. So, Mr. Stefanidis.
Thanks for the introduction. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to talk about the OptiVid study, aiming to optimize vitamin D status in children with asthma or preschool wheeze. To begin with, let's start by defining wheeze. Wheeze is a high-pitched continuous sound produced during expiration, and this is due to the narrowing of the smaller airways. Wheeze is diagnosed in children below the age of 5, whereas asthma is an umbrella term which describes a clinical syndrome of wheeze, chest tightness, breathlessness, and cough. By looking at the prevalence of those 2 clinical syndromes, we see that not every child with preschool wheeze will develop asthma in later life. We also know that those acute symptoms are mainly driven by respiratory infections. Respiratory syncytial virus accounts upon 42% of the episodes of wheezing illness in school children, in preschool children, whereas human rhinovirus accounts about 73% of the asthma exacerbation in school children. Although at the moment we've got a lot of agents to prevent those asthma attacks and episodes of wheezing illness, we still see from the prevalence that the rate is still very increased. At the present time, vitamin D has received great attention in relation to the prevention of asthma attacks. The only Cochrane review in the area concluded that the vitamin D supplementation significantly reduces the asthma attacks, precipitating an emergency department visit or hospitalization. Having said that, I would like now to point out the mechanism, the effect, what is the effect of the vitamin D behind the prevention of asthma attacks. Here we've got the vitamin D metabolism. Vitamin D is administered in human body either through diet or through the sunlight exposure and undergoes hydroxylation in the liver, resulting in the formation of 25-hydroxyvitamin D. The second step of the activation happens in kidney or extrarenally, where particularly interested in the respiratory epithelium, where it results in formation of 25-dehydroxyvitamin D, the active metabolite. Upon infection with human rhinovirus, we've got an upregulation of CYP27B1 enzyme responsible for the second hydroxylation process, which facilitates the production of 125-dehydroxyvitamin D, which in turn induces antiviral responses, mainly through the induction of cathelicidin and defensins, and also by the modulation of the inflammatory response. You may wonder now why then we further research in this area. We designed this study because we have very limited numbers of trials in children. Also, from those trials, some of them, they haven't determined plasma 25-hydroxyvitamin D concentration, and in trials where 25-hydroxyvitamin D was determined, the vitamin D dose regimen was not enough to obtain an optimal vitamin D status. In other words, the most effective vitamin D dose regimen that elevates 25-hydroxyvitamin D in children with asthma and wheezing illness is still unknown. At the present time, the Department of Health in the United Kingdom suggests 400 units of vitamin D a day to maintain enough vitamin D, but it's still unknown whether this dose regimen is sufficient to elevate 25-hydroxyvitamin D over 75 nanomole, the threshold we consider to see the extraskeletal benefit. So, the OptiVid study is a 6-month vitamin D3 supplementation study in 20 children with preschool wheeze and 20 children with asthma. Those children, they had their 25-hydroxyvitamin D concentration assessed, and concentration of inflammatory mediators in nasal lining epithelial fluid. Children with 25-hydroxyvitamin D concentration below 75 nanomole per liter, they started 400 units of vitamin D3 per day for 3 months. After 3 months, children had their same tests performed again, and those with 25-hydroxyvitamin D concentration below 150 nanomole per liter, they had their daily vitamin D dose escalated to 1,000 units for a further of 3 months. After this period, after 3 months again, the same tests were performed, and this was the end of the study. So let's quickly move to some of the preliminary results. What I've got here is 25-hydroxyvitamin D concentration at baseline, after 3 months, and after 6 months of supplementation in children with preschool WHIS. We see that only 60% of them, they obtain optimal vitamin D status at 3 months, versus 50% of them, they obtain optimal vitamin D at 6 months with a higher dose. Things are a bit different for older children. We can see that only 11% obtain their vitamin D status, the optimal vitamin D status at 3 months, compared with 18% which obtain optimal vitamin D status at 6 months. By looking at those graphs, we see that results are not the one that we expected. But why didn't 25-hydroxyvitamin D level went up? First of all, we thought that there is a problem with poor adherence. So most likely children, they didn't take their vitamin D supplementation as was suggested. However, we've got an alternative explanation for our findings. We think that there is a dysregulation of vitamin D metabolism in patients with chronic airway inflammation. We know that asthma is associated with airway inflammation. And we also know from other clinical contexts, such as cancer and obesity, that inflammation is associated with increased activity of enzymes responsible for synthesis and degradation of 1,25-dihydroxyvitamin D. To put this in a context, in a visual context, let's go back to the vitamin D metabolism. In the event of airway inflammation, we've got an upregulation of CYP27B1 enzyme catalyzing the second activation process. And this induces the synthesis of 1,25-dihydroxyvitamin D. At the same time, it decreases concentration of 25-hydroxyvitamin D concentrations. The increase of 1,25-dihydroxyvitamin D concentration also facilitates, promotes the activity of CYP24 which in turn degrades 25-hydroxyvitamin D to main degradation products, and this causes a further decline in 25-hydroxyvitamin D. To put this in a more familiar context to us, I've got the 25-hydroxyvitamin D bucket. So what we hypothesize is asthma promotes the production of 1,25-hydroxyvitamin D and degradation of 25-hydroxyvitamin D in the main byproducts. In other words, what asthma does in 25-hydroxyvitamin D bucket is it causes some holes, reducing the concentration of 25-hydroxyvitamin D concentration in human body in patients with chronic inflammation. This is a hypothesis. So, to test the hypothesis, what I've done is I used data from other trials of vitamin D supplementation in patients, in adult patients with asthma and COPD. And here, I've got the post-supplementation 25-hydroxyvitamin D by disease status. And we can see that patients with asthma and COPD have significantly lower concentration, attained concentration of 25-hydroxyvitamin D as compared with the healthy controls. So, in an adjusted model for the main factors affecting vitamin D status, we see that people with asthma have about 17 nanomole less 25-hydroxyvitamin D as compared with the healthy controls, and people with COPD has about 90 nanomole per liter less 25-hydroxyvitamin D as compared with the healthy controls. Here, I've got the vitamin D metabolite to parent ratios. And what we can see is that patients with asthma and COPD produce significantly lower 25-hydroxyvitamin D and produce significantly higher 1,25-dihydroxyvitamin D as compared with the healthy controls. And there's no any difference in the main degradation products between healthy individuals and diseased. So, to sum up, neither dose investigated, 400 units versus 1,000 units, was effective in elevating 25-hydroxyvitamin D concentration into the optimal range. Patients with asthma, we suppose that may have blunted 25-hydroxyvitamin D response to vitamin D supplementation as compared with the healthy controls. And this is probably associated with decreased 25-hydroxylase activity and increased 1-alpha hydroxylase activity. There's no difference in activity of the main degradation enzymes by disease status. And the take-home message from this presentation, and the one I would like to point out, is that patients with inflammatory airway disease may need more generous doses of vitamin D as compared with healthy controls in order to obtain optimal vitamin D status. I would like to thank all study participants and their parents, as well as my supervisors. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Stefanidis, for this very exciting presentation. So let's say in this particular population with asthma or school quiz, we don't have actually a good marker to monitor vitamin D status. Is that true? How can we, in everyday practice, handle that?
Actually, we measure 25-hydroxyvitamin D, which is the acceptable biomarker because of the
knowing that is lower than normal.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That's knowing.
Okay, any questions, please? Yes, Mr.
Very interesting studies, even though the finding that you did not find, the fact that you did not find any difference in 24-25 dihydroxyvitamin D, it seems to be at variance with your conclusions. However, I wonder if you could measure, if you have some samples also free 25 hydroxyvitamin D. And secondly, there is a paper that describes that the effect of calcidiol instead of pure cholecalciferol are much better in inducing a regression of inflammation. So I think that is in this case, if you give calcidiol instead of cholecalciferol, you can obtain better results.
Thanks for this. Yeah, that's something that, because this is a pilot study for a phase 3 randomized control trial, so we try to see whether it is feasible to recruit entertaining children, because it's very challenging to recruit children for derivation studies in that long period, 6 months. But this is something that definitely we're going to get on board for the planning of the phase 3 trial.
Okay. Other, yes?
Very nice study, although the numbers are very small. And perhaps your provisional results are due to the small number of studies, because 11% of 20 children is just one child, as you showed in your schemes.
Absolutely right.
The second, this was a comment, a question is, do you have the opportunity to measure local vitamin D concentrations in exudates from asthma or something, in order to confirm or to rule out your hypothesis?
As I said before, it was very challenging to recruit children, and we only take blood from finger prick. So we use a very small quantity of blood to measure 25-hydroxyvitamin D, and we don't have whole blood.
No, the lung exudates or the...
Oh, no, haven't, no. We just measure inflammatory cytokines in breath. Yep, that's the only... This is going to be... Yeah. But I want to see what is the effect, because we measure at baseline and after 3 and 6 months. So I want to see if there's any effect of vitamin D on the exhalated. We don't have analyzed it yet, because it still is ongoing.
May I ask also a question? Maybe, okay, it's an easy question or a difficult question, I don't know. Because I'm not specialized in children, but continuing the discussion from what was said before, in relation to the poor adherence, because, okay, a drug can work only if you take it. So especially in a population like children or adolescents, or even preschool infants. So could it be that the weekly administration would be a better option? I don't know, biologically or pharmacokinetically. If as I have heard before, maybe daily dosing is better, okay, to achieve what we want from the drug. But maybe, I don't know, in the literature or in the research field, maybe a weekly dose can help with adherence with the children.
Yeah.
So for them also not to feel that they are, patient. They want to feel that they are healthy. So if we give them each day a drug, I know because from the dyslipidemia field that I'm working, it's difficult to persuade a child that you need to take the drug each day. So, okay.
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, one option was to have a volume dose, a very high volume dose at the beginning, and then a maintenance dose. But because there is the limited half-life, issue, we prefer to give every single day to steadily increase vitamin D status.
And do you think, according to this point of view, that these changes could be operated to any other inflammatory condition, meaning that vitamin D, 25 hydroxyvitamin D, could be generally lowered in acute or chronic inflammatory conditions, and having that in mind when we measure it?
Yes, so the evidence showing that it seems that it's worth it to measure vitamin D status in patients with, as we say, inflammatory. And also, it is known, it's well established in patients with obesity and in patients with cancer, which are both inflammatory diseases.
Okay, obesity is, as we will learn, is vitamin D is lower, but for probably other reasons. But I speak for inflammatory per se conditions. You think that vitamin D is lower? Okay.
Yeah, that's what the evidence shows so far.
Of course. Okay. Okay. Other. Yes.
The microphone.
Microphone, please.
I have a question concerning your hypothesis that in the condition of asthma, you have low activity on 25 hydroxylase and increased activity of 1 alpha hydroxylase. This is your hypothesis. How, by what measurement, are you going to confirm these hypotheses?
So by measuring the endpoint metabolites.
So you should measure, and this is my advice, the vitamin D metabolic ratio. This is the ratio of the total vitamin D to the concentration of 24-25 vitamin D metabolites. And this will indicate the activity of the enzyme you suggested take part in this regulation. And the second suggestion, you can regulate this enzyme nutritionally. For example, to suppress the CYP24A1. So you can use some products which have genistein. And genistein suggests this enzyme. So you can have the effect you want. Okay.
Thank you very much for your suggestion. Yeah, we'll take that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Stefanidis.